Good evening, everyone. We will begin our Board of Appeals meeting for the City of Holland. Just want to remind everybody that board members are regular citizens of Holland who have volunteered and have been appointed by City Council to consider applications to the Zoning Board of Appeals, Housing Board of Appeals, Construction Board of Appeals, and for accommodations for persons with disabilities. This board must interpret each application as it relates to city ordinances. This board is not empowered to rezone or to take any action that could be considered rezoning. The agenda is in the back, and we will go through the agenda in the order that the applications were received by the city. The presence of 4 board members is required for a quorum, and it takes 4 concurring votes to approve applications. When your application is called, we ask that you come to the microphone, state your name and address. We will hear the applicant first, then anyone supporting the application, followed by anyone opposing the application. After the public hearing is closed, there will be no other opportunity for further public comment related to that application. Decisions of the board are final and are effective on the day of such decision. However, applicants may appeal decisions to the circuit court in accordance with state law. If you elect not to stay for our deliberation and decision, you may call Community and Neighborhood Services Department tomorrow morning to learn the results. We are streaming this online live, and it is recorded and available to be viewed on the city's YouTube channel. So, if there's no objections to our current agenda, will our clerk please read the first item?
Yes, the first application is for 547 Grove Avenue, application number 21.14Z. Kathy Bright is requesting 2 variances to build a new house at her property, 547 Grove Avenue. The new house will be set back 12 feet from the front property line where 20 feet is required, and 17 feet from the rear property line where 20 feet is required. The Board of Appeals can approve these requests if certain conditions are found to exist. 39-2.06.
Okay, thank you. Do we have somebody here representing the applicant?
Hi, I am Kathy Bright from 178 West 35th Street and Holland, and I'm the owner of the property.
Okay, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, just go through your application, just explain the reasons for
Certainly.
your application.
Sure. Okay, so the unique circumstances that I find that are in question, and which is why I'm asking for the variance, or the 2 variances if possible, is the narrow, uneven lot that doesn't allow a lot of space. Obviously, it's a 50-foot lot, like many of the other ones in that area. But additionally, the water issues, the water table, as we all know, especially people in that area, have been pretty extreme. So that has put us in a position to, instead of having like a basement, a full basement, we're looking at doing either a cement slab or I guess, a crawl space. So with that, we would have to, ordinarily you would put all of your mechanics in the lower level or in the basement area. We are looking at putting it more on the main level. So we would have a mechanics room, the storage room, which would house all of the water heater, the furnace and air conditioning, whatever has to be done. So that's going to take up that much more space on that footprint property. In addition, the many neighbors have voiced their opinion, not just to me, but I'm sure you guys have heard it as well, that there is always a need to either monitor the basement, the water levels, or it actually renders the basement area almost useless. So either they monitor it, they have a, at least the greatest share of the people, it seems, may have a sump pump, that sort of thing. So obviously that space would definitely be limited. So complying with a lot of the neighbors, their front yards, their backyards, even side yards are much smaller than what this one would even be. So I'm asking only for an 8-foot difference on the west side and only a 3-foot difference on the back side. That would allow some green space, which is exactly what the neighborhood represents. A little bit of green space, but obviously all of the lots are small. So we're trying to put a complementary home in a small lot, but which would appeal to, I think, the vast majority of the neighbors.
Thank you, we appreciate that. And if there's any questions from our board members for our applicant, please, go ahead. Go ahead, Brad.
Have you considered with your builder doing a detached garage so you can be within the allowed setbacks of 3 feet?
We did. We discussed it actually with some of the representatives here. The problem would be you would have this useless space in between. It's just didn't seem to be a cohesive way to go about doing it. And I should mention also the previous home, which was just recently demolished. I don't want to say it was an eyesore, but it was difficult for, I think, the neighborhood to see. And it didn't comply anywhere near to what the standards are that we are approaching today. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the old home, and I think it was meeting the rear setback and the sides for the detached garage. I realized certainly the house was closer to Grove and Lakeview than the proposed building.
Exactly. It was like,
Yeah.
a portion of it was like 5 feet
Yeah.
from the road, yeah.
Go ahead, Fred.
I have a question. One of the criteria that we're using to determine your application is something I'd like to ask your opinion about as well. So let me just read it to you. It says, will strict compliance of the 20-foot front and rear yard setbacks unreasonably prevent you from using the property for its permitted purpose? In other words, it's residential property. Will strict compliance prevent you from developing this for its permitted purpose? Permitted meaning what it's zoned for.
Yeah, I think, was that point number 3, I think?
Yes, that's point number 3.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Again, going back to the water issues,
Mhm.
it does create a lot of difficulty because of the lot is uneven, and it's kind of, after the survey, which you've probably seen a copy of, it sits kind of crooked on there. So that just, it's like we needed a little bigger footprint to accommodate what we want to do.
Mhm.
And I guess if we had a full basement, that could alleviate some of that. And honestly, the lower level floor is only like 1,000 square feet, I think, and we're borrowing a little piece of the garage to accommodate that. I think I drew that out on one of the site plans as well.
Do you have a sense of what the square feet is of the proposed
Yeah, we're
house?
looking at about 2,000, maybe it's 22,
The
something like that.
footprint itself is about
Full,
2,000
both
square
stories.
feet.
It's a little under that,
Mhm.
actually.
And then an additional 500 square feet up on the upper portion?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh, sorry.
a couple other questions. Actually, I've got a question.
Okay, sure.
Couple of questions I had. You keep mentioning that the lot is uneven. I'm not following what you mean by that. Because
On
it looks
the-
like it's a 50-foot by 100-foot, 50-foot on both sides, on east and west side, 100-foot on the north and south side.
Right. However, on the, when you look on the survey, it's kind of moved over on the, I think it's the east side, and much closer to the corner on Lakeview. It's, and I think it's the roadway, maybe, when.
Okay, so the pavement,
Yes, from the
okay, so
road.
from the pavement as opposed to the lot itself and the right-of-way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, when they did the survey, they had to go like 3 lots over each way because it didn't make sense, I guess, so, I mean, I'm going by the survey.
Okay. And then the other question I had would be, you're asking for 2 separate variances?
If possible,
Both of them, not one
Yes,
or the other?
correct.
But both?
correct,
Okay, so we would be voting on both?
Mhm.
Okay.
please.
Any other,
Can I get some clarification? Is that two separate or one motion?
Who's talking?
one, Dan,
Oh, it's
behind you.
I'm sorry.
The voice from behind you. The other Dan.
I'm sorry,
I think
Dan.
that depends on
Okay.
what Vince needs, I think.
That's okay, I was getting,
So it'd be one, one motion.
One motion.
One motion for both variances, excuse me.
just want to make sure that you would prefer that, or would you rather do it as two motions? So maybe if you don't get the first
Oh, I see what
one,
you're saying. I have an
you can still get the
option?
second one.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Yeah,
I
then
believe you want
guess I
two
want
separate motions, right?
Two, yes. Then
So if you
thank
don't get one, you
for
get the other, and
clarifying.
if you don't get the other, you get the other. Okay.
Yes,
I want to
yes.
clarify.
And if I didn't get the one on the east side, I mean, I could work with that. Maybe make the garage side a little bit smaller. But
Okay,
either
so
way,
you- all right.
I'd have to work with it.
All right, thank you. So that helped me clarify. So
Okay,
we would be
sorry.
looking for two motions, one for the front yard setback and then a separate motion for the rear yard setback. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions from our board members? Go ahead, Matt.
I noticed that the existing building, well, it's shown as the existing
Yeah,
building here,
that
but
was-
the old building.
That was pre-demo.
Before it was demolished, it extended further east than it looks like the residential, like, first floor
Yes.
is going to here. So is there an issue really with if you detach the garage, move it further? Is that eliminating spots? Does it go from a one-car to a two-car garage?
Yeah,
Or
let me
two-
explain.
To one?
I understand. Let me explain. What was there listed on your sheet as current house was detached. So there was kind of that useless space in between the house and the garage. But we are looking at having a bonus space above a portion of that garage. So that would obviously mean it needs to be attached to make the, I guess, the home the way we'd like it.
True. But could you detach the garage and just extend where the footprint of the residence would be? Could you just extend that down, maybe even get a few more feet when you take into account the setback you would have, what, I think, is it 3 feet between, can someone clarify, is it 3 feet between a detached garage and the residence?
That's correct, but that's not taken into consideration. An accessory dwelling unit over the garage, that would then push it to 5 feet.
Not allowed in this.
Okay.
And ADUs are not permitted in this zone district.
Okay. But if she moved this garage over to roughly where the the old garage had been, within compliance, it's what, 3 feet from that part of the property, you would still be able to extend, I would think, it looks like you'd be able to extend 6, 7, 8 feet further to the east on the first floor, and I don't know, maybe even a little more. I'm not sure. I just feel like, have you discussed those plans thoroughly with architects?
Yes, however, then we would lose on any true green space in the back, I call it the backyard on the east side, by having that division.
Okay. It just seems like it's more of a design choice that's being made, and not being that your hand is forced, but rather that this is ideally what you want to do. But it would be possible.
I don't know, I guess I'd have to talk to the contractor and design person more specifically about that then.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a design that looked like it would fit good in a narrow lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was
Yeah, I like the
pretty much going
design.
on that.
I do understand it. It looks,
Okay.
it does look
to
appealing.
make sense, okay. But yeah, I'd have to further that discussion with others.
I have one more question, in regards to, let's see, is that the west, the front on Grove, looking for the 12-foot setback. The house is, I think, if we're reading this right, 1 foot closer than that 20-foot, except for the front door bump out maybe. And then with the covered porch, we're only 12 feet, is that right?
from the front
of the front porch.
porch, yeah, because the front porch is covered and that has to be included, from what I understand, with the measurements. So that 12-foot would begin at the front porch.
Okay.
To
And
the-
again, I've seen the design. It's a very sharp design. I think it would fit well here. Just wondering to fit within this setback, I think we can be half of that setback in if it's not covered. And I know that completely changes this design.
You're right, you're right.
Just wondering how you talked about that with your architect or builder, or the considerations of that.
Yeah, and again, I think same as with Matthew, I'd have to go back and relook at plans, probably change it up. It's not to say that maybe it couldn't be done, but I think it makes it really hard to get everything in that area. And looking at the area, there's a lot of covered and enclosed porches. You know, if I want to comply totally with the other ones in that area, you know, there's one on Locust that just, you know, they just put an addition on, which is a covered porch, but it's, you know, covered and enclosed. And that one is much closer to the road than this one would be, so.
And just point of order, that, that was the structure that I talked to you guys about in the pre-meeting, that came in right before the ordinance change.
Okay, thank you very much. If
Anything
there's no other questions, then I will move to open our public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will open our public hearing and ask if anybody wishes to speak in support of this application. We did, go
Yeah,
ahead.
we did get 2 letters of support as well. So if you want me to read the names and address for that?
Sure, go ahead. I was just gonna do that myself. but yeah,
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Awesome. So we got one from Greg Kaminga at 1226 Beach Drive in support of the project. And then we also received one from John and Susan Knoll at 1230 Beach Drive, also in support of the project.
Okay, thank you. And now I'll ask if anybody is here to speak in opposition of this application. They can step forward. And we did not receive any letters in opposition, is my understanding. Not seeing anybody moving towards the podium, I will now close the public hearing and move to deliberation among our board members and potentially look for a motion. Or, excuse me, 2 motions. Let's start with the motion for the front yard setback.
The front yard setback is what I kind of struggle with now that the rules are hard set at 20 feet. The fact that we had a house there that was less than 20 feet, it feels like the numbers have kind of come in and kind of want to change the character of the neighborhood rather than preserving, you know what I mean? But from what I understood from city staff is that the folks who live in this, what is it? The CNR zone really talked for a while about these numbers and came to an agreement on them. So I guess I'm a little bit surprised that they wanted to do this, go in this direction. But now that it is an ordinance and set in stone, I feel like we do have to honor it, which is kind of frustrating, but this is what the neighborhood is going towards. So I think there's nothing unique about the property that allows us to contradict the ordinance as it is stated. Can I cross that correctly, I suppose?
Yep, get your point there. So are you looking to make a motion then? Or is there more?
Just
discussion?
deliberating with my fellows.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to deny. Based on the comments there as well, I don't think this lot is unique from any of the other lots in this neighborhood district. Number 3, the strict compliance with the 20-foot front and rear yard setbacks. Well, I'll speak specifically to the front. I don't think this will unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose, which is single-family home. There are options to creep into that with an uncovered porch. Number 4 is request a variance, the minimum variance necessary for substantial justice to the applicant. I realize that they have a nice design, and this is what they are seeking. The neighborhood has also just decided on the 20-foot setbacks for the front, and I still think that a beautiful home can be built on this lot. So,
I'd like to support Brad's motion.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a support, we have some findings of fact even. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, is this
Go ahead,
just for the 20-foot?
This
Or
is
we
for
do-
the,
just-
yes,
just for the
this
front.
is for the front 20-foot setback that was, or excuse me, a 12-foot setback that was sought, where a 20-foot is required. Not seeing any other discussion, then I think we'll go for a vote on the first motion.
All right, the motion is to deny Fusak,
yes.
Bedard,
Yes.
Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Sorick.
Yes.
Motion to deny passes.
Okay, now on the matter of the rear yard setback where 17 feet was sought instead of a 20-foot setback for the rear yard, looking for a motion or any discussion there.
Same facts that Matt has brought up rely into the same for that setback as well. This is what the community got together and sought through the new ordinance, and I think we need to honor that process that went through to see that that we hold to that standard that was set.
Is that a motion?
I didn't hear a motion on that, sorry.
Well, I would make a motion that we deny.
Okay, thank you.
I support that.
Okay, we have a motion, we have support, and findings of fact is that, similar to the first motion, in that there's not unique circumstances and strict compliance does not prevent use of the property as intended. Any other discussion? Am I stepping on anybody else's findings of fact there?
I think, just to add on to what people have said, while the process that the city took to develop the new Udo did involve a lot of the people in the community. It was brought before the planning commission and before city council. It was passed and now is an ordinance in the city. So even despite the process that it went through, it is now the law that we're working with, and it's something that we have to honor in all of our kind of deliberations as well. Despite the fact that we may like it or not like it, or it doesn't make sense to us, our job is to interpret that ordinance and follow it. So I'd just like to make that point.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Not seeing any, I'll ask for a vote on this.
All right, the motion is to deny Barr,
Yes.
Van Antwerp,
Yes.
Bedard,
Yes.
Fusak,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Sorick.
Yes.
Motion to deny passes.
Okay. And our second item on the agenda.
All right, the second one is for 92 East 17th Street, application number 21.15Z. Kevin Woltheis is requesting a variance to build a new garage with an accessory dwelling unit, ADU, at his house, 92 East 17th Street. The new garage with a second floor ADU would be located 2 feet from the side property line where 5 feet is required. The Board of Appeals can approve this request if certain conditions are found to exist. 39-2.08, 39-9.07, D2.
Thank you. And we have somebody,
Yes,
Go
Kevin
ahead.
Woltheis, 92 East 17th Street.
okay. Thank you. If you could, take us through your application, and we do have the answers to a lot of your questions, that, you know, the questions that were asked of you, that
Okay.
your answers, we have your answers to those questions, but those are the same questions that we're using as as our proof findings of fact on whether we feel that, these are being met or not. So go ahead, if you would, please.
Sure. The goal for our project, we've got a garage located currently, which is slowly falling down, stated, like a lot of the garages in the area. Modern garages are a thing on city lots. The nature of a city lot is generally fairly narrow. Garages are small. Cars went through seasons of smaller size, larger size. If you've got a family with kids, you need a larger car. The goal to not be parking on the road or in the driveway, kind of necessitating the ability to park in a garage, kind of a requirement to have a modern garage. A lot of modern garages, 24 feet wide. That's fairly standard for a modern garage. Add in bikes, everything else a family of 6 people has, and you realize you run out of space pretty quickly. So the garage was always kind of on the horizon to do, and so we've been trying to work with the space that we've got. It is a narrow lot. There's some pretty decent landscaping. The yard's in decent shape thanks to the previous owners. We're trying to preserve as much of that as possible and still build a usable garage. So the opportunity came around, I've been a part of the conversation regarding ADUs for quite a while. Had a lot of conversations with people that have built them and have worked on them. And I think one of the things that came through is there's an affordability barrier to the ADU. The numbers don't work for someone to borrow the money to then pay it off over time, and still maintain some affordable rent. So part of the reason for this is I'm actually taking this on as kind of a project to say, can we build it affordably? So I've worked on the design side to say, how do we simplify this design? How do we keep our costs in check to be able to put up an affordable ADU where the numbers actually do work? So my approach to this is to say, like, I'm trying to design with that in mind. So we've had to make a couple considerations. One is integrating the stairs into the structure itself. There were some options on that from a design perspective, but from simplicity and cost, keeping them inside the structure is the most cost-effective way to do that. Also regarding the overall height requirement, the average height, there's only so many places you can have those stairs end up. And so to do that, we have to bring the stairs up the side of the structure. So that makes that garage even narrower inside. So the design that we've put together is the compromise to say, this is trying to maintain a functional garage, still trying to have a usable staircase, usable ADU, cost-effective design that could be scaled. The hope is to have a prototype coming out of this to say, like, hey, we've got a design where the numbers work. We've also designed it so the interior walls upstairs can move in and out based on the calculations required for square footage of usable space upstairs. So we've really tried to do everything we can. And so for this, it's a prototype, as well as this is a project that we kind of wanted to do anyway. So I'm really trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone on this project. So that's basically it. Originally 24, we scaled down to 22. Trying to maintain those 2-foot increments from a building perspective, that's, if you go outside of that, it gets a lot more expensive. So this was our best effort to say, we can make something that's going to check all the boxes. I do understand, character of the area, knowing so many things are built on the line. I understand you can't build it on the line. That doesn't make sense. We have to move away from that. So I'm not trying to say, hey, I want to keep it where it is. I want to, I've heard along and within, maintaining a wall. Sometimes people do that. It makes sense to me that it isn't right on the property line. And I do know that you have to fire rate if it's inside, so that's fine. We could do that. So this is my proposal.
Okay, any questions while the homeowner is here at the podium from our board?
One of the criteria that we are facing with your application is this one. It says, is the need for this variance due to unique circumstances or physical conditions of the property involved, such as narrowness, shallowness, shape, so forth? I'm sure you've read that. What are the unique circumstances that you're referring to?
I think it's just the width of the lot as a whole. To say, if you take the width of, in the city lots, they vary They can be anywhere down in the 40s up to, you know, sometimes the mid-60s. To put a modern garage on a narrower lot starts to leave you with absolutely no usable backyard. And so I think that's just a consideration that kind of has to be made.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is that I think it's an important consideration for us about whether it is or not a narrow lot. And
Sure.
we asked our staff or the city staff to give us a sense of the lot widths along that entire street. And it appears that your lot is pretty much the same as the average width along that entire street. So I don't believe that presents a unique circumstance for you to argue from. That's my own
Sure.
point of view. I just wondered whether there was anything else that would could be used in that for you, but no.
Yeah, I think the whole consideration is around like what, and I know that this has been an active conversation about how do we make modern garages in the city when there is demand for that. And especially trying to forward the cause of an ADU to say we have to have enough usable space. Specifically, so if you do an ADU, you're going to create additional parking demand. So it's very important that you're able to put as many cars as possible into the garage to lessen the demand out on the street or in the driveway. So that would be another consideration.
Okay.
You're getting about, what, 5 foot wider garage and 12 foot deeper? That's basically what you're doing here?
Yeah, it'd be, yeah,
Right around that?
yeah.
Rough numbers? Okay, so you're really not getting any more cars in that garage. You're gonna get more storage in the front of it for sure.
I mean, I think you can fit cars in.
It's
if you-
16 wide now, is that what you got? You got
Yeah,
22 you're
16.
going for, so you might get two in the 22?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the whole game where you unload them before you pull into the garage.
Right, right,
Yeah,
okay. And it is your intent to do the ADU?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
For me, just wanted to clarify, it's just a 3 feet difference from the edge of the ADU, the proposed ADU, to the property line, going from 5 feet down to 2 feet is what you're asking for. Now, if you were to comply with the 5 feet and you take your existing ADU and you just scoot it 3 more feet, what is going to be the downsides of doing that?
The yard gets even smaller. Yeah.
Is there a buried septic or a structure in the backyard that can't be moved? Within that 3
I mean,
feet?
there's some sizable trees, trying to preserve some of those trees. You know, if you build too close to root structure, you'd run the risk of killing the tree. So there's a nice silver maple, trying to protect and preserve that as much as possible. There's a climbing wall on one side of the yard. Below the climbing wall is some rubber mulch that, you know, for if a kid falls off or something like that. So it just kind of cuts down your green space to very, very little.
Any other questions?
So I guess my last question would be, point number 3 that we have to ask for this is that strict compliance of the 5 foot side yard setback unreasonably prevents the property owner from using the property for a permitted purpose, or will it render conformity with those regulations unnecessarily burdensome? So at least what I'm hearing is that just the 3 feet is just going to be an inconvenience in terms of losing some yard space. You're not going to be running into any permanent structures that's going to make this very difficult. You're not running into any infrastructure underground when you're making this. It's just, you would like there to be more yard, and I totally understand, by the way.
Right.
I wanted to put a fence in, and I ended up having to abide by state
Sure.
ordinances. And, lost some of my yard. And one of these days I'm going to have kids, Lord willing, and they're going to have less yard space to play in. And it's annoying. But it is just 3 feet by, 32 feet. So that's a little bit of space, but you'll still have permitted use and a nice yard back there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it starts to call into question whether we would even do the ADU or not. Because if, as after you account for the width with the stairs integrated into the structure and how small the garage is gonna be, it starts to get to the point where it's like, I don't know if this is worth it. Because if we do it and we can't put 2 cars in, all of a sudden we have more parking issues to deal with. So it would change drastically what we probably do.
So it is gonna be 22 feet wide, ADU with the extra width for the stairwell to get up to the second floor.
Yeah,
As it's shown
the
here, okay.
external's at 22.
Okay.
But to leave room for, an adequate stairway and landings on both ends, yeah.
So really, the additional width is for the stairway and the ADU, because you're putting a 16-foot door in either way.
Yeah.
So if you eliminate the ADU, you take the stair out, you're back to the original size, you're unloading the kids, and then you're pulling the car in again, like you're doing now.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we wanted to accomplish this goal, it's kind of like we're trying to compromise on as many fronts as possible to make it work.
Yep.
And part of that is like the garage has to be sufficient size to
Right.
integrate the
And the
stairs.
ADU is what pushes it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm a
Any
little
other-
confused about why does the ADU need to push towards the property line rather than just into the yard? I thought it was, if you go into the yard, then you're just losing yard space.
Right, so I think the compromise that we would make is to say, if we have to shift that whole thing over, looking at the yard we have now, we may just not do it. It might be like, it's not worth it, we've got, a yard is used by our 4 kids plus the neighbor's 7 kids, and it's the only green space they've got, cause they have wood chips and other things in their backyard. So for us, the value would be like, no, we actually have to preserve that, so we probably just won't do the project.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing, and anybody who wishes to speak in favor of the application, please step forward. Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition, and we did not receive any letters for or against, correct? Okay, so nobody speaking in opposition or in favor. Then I will close the public hearing and move towards deliberation of the board. Or a motion.
I just want to bring up,
Dan, go ahead.
I just want to bring up one point. To build just a garage or just an accessory building, your setbacks, based on our zoning ordinance, is 3 feet. You add the ADU, and that's where those additional 2 feet come into play. Just wanted to remind you of that.
Okay, and the request was for 2 foot.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because of the ADU. So
Well, I mean,
we're
no, he's
forcing it.
looking to build it 2 foot off the property line,
Right,
which wouldn't meet the request, the setback for just a simple garage either, which is required to be 3 feet.
yeah, so he could do the 3 feet without the ADU, probably keep more in line with the neighborhood or
Well,
keep
just
in line with the
the ordinance.
ordinance.
Correct.
Yes.
All right, looking for a motion and support.
I'd like to make a motion to deny the request for variance. We've, I think, fairly well established that the lot size is not unique for this area of the city, even. So the uniqueness of the property, there aren't any physical conditions on it that change the considerations for this. The request for the variance does seem to be a design decision rather than needing to avoid some sort of bit of infrastructure, needing to avoid some sort of physical characteristic. It's the owner's preference to move it towards the edge of the property rather than more into the yard, I suppose. And strict compliance with that 5 foot setback is going to let them use the yard if they want to and have an ADU. So it is permitted, and it's their choice whether or not they want to make the ADU with a smaller yard, but it's not unnecessarily burdensome to ask them to just move that 3 feet and stay within compliance. It's not going to cause a negative impact for them to comply with this ordinance either. As far as the neighborhood is concerned, the neighborhood will not be negatively impacted by them moving it 3 feet east or west, I guess, so.
I would like to support this motion too.
Okay, so we got a motion, we got support. Any further discussion? We have findings of fact. Not seeing any other discussion, we'll move for a vote.
All right, the motion is to deny Davis,
Yes.
Bedard,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Van Antwerp,
Yep.
Fusak,
Yes.
Sorek.
Yes.
Motion to deny passes.
Okay. And the next item on our agenda is the approval of our meeting minutes from the July 22nd, 2021 meeting. Everybody's had a chance to look at those minutes, I hope. And
Make a motion to approve.
got a motion
I'll support.
and support. All in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, none. All right, the minutes are approved, and our next meeting date will be Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. Looking for one final motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
We got motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.